The end time religion, as described in Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5, is called Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. So on her forehead is written harlot, mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. So we see that the religion of the end times is destroyed by God in Revelation 17 and in Revelation 18. We see the destruction of commercial Babylon. Now, what was Babylon's sin? Babylon's sin was not just fornication or idolatry, but pride, greed, the oppression of the poor, covetousness, and selfishly gotten wealth and selfishly held wealth. And the cherry on the cake was rebellion. Rebellion against God and His kingdom. And though a Christian may never partake of religious Babylon, but the commercial, materialistic aspect of Babylon poses a great threat to the best of us if we aren't careful and if we aren't diligent. In Matthew chapter 13, Jesus says that the lure of wealth and the deceitfulness of riches causes us to be unproductive for the kingdom of God because we're so involved in gaining wealth, getting stuff. We're unproductive for God. And in Revelation chapter 18 and verse 5, let us read the next chapter, chapter 18, verse 5. For her sins have reached to heaven. And God, this is Babylon's sins, her sins have reached to heaven. And God has remembered her iniquities. Whatever they conceived to do in Genesis chapter 11, which I spoke about in a previous video, whatever they conceived to do in Genesis 11 under the leadership of Nimrod, their wicked leader, their devilish leader, who decided that no, we will not be scattered abroad to the ends of the earth. We will stay here. We will build a tower whose top is in the heavens. And we will make a name for ourselves. And they were making great progress. They were making bricks in a kiln. They were doing all this stuff. And they all spoke one language and nothing was being held from them. They could just do anything they wanted until God confounded them. He confounded their language. And their proud and evil works just grew more. At that point, the rebellion was put down. But their proud and evil works just grew, increased, and multiplied, and have indeed reached the heavens, just like they intended the Tower of Babel to reach the heavens. It actually has reached the heavens, because in chapter 18, verse 5, it says, her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. In Revelation chapter 18, verse 6, it says, render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix double for her. For all of her wickedness, render double trouble to her. Give her double the destruction that she is causing in the earth. Render double to her. Pay the debt due to Babylon for the abominable sins, for the filthiness of her sins. What are her sins? They have been outlined in the next verse, verse 7. It says, in the measure that she glorified herself. She glorified herself. Babylon has always glorified themselves. They think there's nothing like them. She has always glorified. In the measure that she glorified herself, we have to glorify God. Paul writes to the Romans in chapter 1, he says, they refuse to glorify God, but they're glorifying themselves. He says, for as much in the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. That's the outcome of Babylon and the way they are living. There's torment. There's destruction waiting for them, for those that live in the world. She's glorifying herself and living luxuriously. In the world, it's all a race for money to just live more comfortably, more luxuriously. There's so much filth in the world. She lived luxuriously, but in the same measure, her luxuries will end and her torments will come in a day. And then it further says, for she's in the same measure give her torment and sorrow, in the same measure as she's lived luxuriously. She has said in her heart, I sit as queen and am no widow and will not see sorrow. I am a queen. That's the mindset of the world. I'm not going to see sorrow. The mindset of Babylon is no sorrow, no troubles, no pains. I will not see sorrow. I'm not a widow. Avoidance of suffering. This reminds me of the luxury liner Titanic. We've all seen the movie. We've all read about the Titanic. We all know about the Titanic. The Titanic, she was strong, beautiful, and considered by the makers of the ship. They considered her to be indestructible. It was a millionaire special, a royal ship, unsinkable. They said, no, it cannot be sinked. It's constructed so solid, it's safe. And this reminds me of the world's mindset. They think that they're safe. They're safe. Nothing can happen to them. They don't believe that torment will come to them. What nonsense. It can never happen. There's no torment. It's just live any way you feel like. But you know that the Titanic, even though the makers of Titanic, just like the makers of Babylon, they think that they are indestructible and they can just do anything, charter any course, and even dangerous territory cannot destroy them. But with the Titanic, just 4 days into her maiden voyage, on April the 14th, 1912, she ran into an iceberg, and the iceberg fractured the hull and ripped into the hull, and sinking the ship and killing almost 1,500 to 2,000 people on board. No one knows the exact number, but that's about approximately as many, and they were all rich people, mind you. Otherwise, how could you be sailing on that ship? It wasn't a poor person's ship. It was a luxury liner. God warns his people in Revelation chapter 18 and verse 4. He says, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins. He is warning his people, come out from there. Come out of her, lest you partake in her sins. And once you partake of her sins, you will partake in her punishment also, and her plagues. Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. If you partake of her sins, you're going to receive of her plagues. You're going to have to partake of that torment, that cup of indignation that the Lord's going to pour out upon them. You're going to have to partake in that. So just get out from there. Don't mess with them. Don't partake in all the stuff they do. In John chapter 17, I'm talking about the Gospel of John. John chapter 17. John chapter 17 and verse 16. Jesus says, this is the high priest's prayer. He's praying for his people. He's praying for his flock. He's praying for his disciples, for all those whom he's going to leave behind just before he dies. He makes this high priestly prayer. Jesus says in verse 15, John chapter 17, verse 15, I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. If Jesus is not of the world, why should we be of the world? He says to the Lord, he says to his Father, he's praying, and he says, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil. Keep them from the evil one. And then he says, they aren't of the world. We aren't of the world. So flat out, Jesus says, they aren't of the world, just as I am not of the world. He goes on to say, sanctify them, which means separate them, dedicate them, consecrate them, purify them inside out, purify them by your truth. He says here, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. This is the thing that sanctifies us, purifies us. Your word is truth. And Paul also tells us the same thing. He says, do not be conformed to this world. This is Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do we renew our mind? How are we going to get new thoughts in our mind? We have to take God's thoughts and stick it in our mind so that we think this way. We don't have to think like the world. If we think like the world and partake in the nonsense in the world, we are going to partake in the punishment of the world, which they think is never going to come to them. They say, we are safe, we cannot be destroyed. Well, we have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Again, back to 1 John, let's put something here, and 1 John, 1 John, Epistle of John, chapter 2, and in verse 15, he says, John, the Apostle John writes, he says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So do not love the world. We are not of the world. Jesus said they are not of the world, just like I'm not of the world. How can we love the stuff that God hates? We cannot love the stuff God hates. Don't let that distract you. He says, do not love the world or the things in the world. Don't love the glory of the world. Don't want people to praise you in the world. The world hates you. Hates you. Do not love the world or the things in the world. He says, because if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. It's not from the Father. The world stuff is not from the Father. So if you're going to love all that stuff, then the love of God is not in you. The love of God, the Father, is not in you. So John is exhorting a Christian, the church. He's exhorting the people of the church. And he says to them, don't love the world or the things that the world affords. Because the world wants your love and all your attention. We see, with the social media, we see how much of our attention it takes, how much it wants of our time, all the time it wants us there. How many likes did we get? The world is very demanding, and there are benefits to loving the world. It comes along with great comfort, status, honor, prestige. The world will love you. The world will honor you. The world will praise you. But as for me, I don't want their praises. I don't want the world's praises. I don't want status. They can say anything they want about me. Just enjoy yourself and be my guest. I want the praises. I want Jesus to say, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master. Come into the kingdom. I'd rather have honor from God. I don't want anything from the world anymore. I've lived enough in the world. I've seen, there's that song, I've looked at clouds from both sides now. I've looked at this stuff from both sides. I can see it now, see it in a different light. I saw it before, I loved it. Because the love of the Father is not in anything from the world. And many Christians, especially the Roman Catholic denomination, young girls and boys, they literally leave their home at a very young age. They leave the world behind. They leave everything in the world. They don't want anything. They don't want anything to do with marriage or rearing children or anything, earning money, getting wealth, establishing a home, and all the stuff that we do. They don't do all that. They go into monasteries, they join monasteries, convents, and there they focus on the love of God. And although it's a wonderful idea, it's a good idea, it's a noble idea, but there's one difficulty, because we are called to walk a happy middle ground. See, we just heard Jesus say, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world. There's no use in us going out of the world. If we have to go out of the world, we need to die, go to heaven. We need to be in the earth. This world is absolutely in utter darkness. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And if He is the light of the world, then we are the light of the world. A city built on a hill will be seen by everybody. He says, let your deeds be seen before men. Let them glorify God. So we are like a beacon of light, those out there in the world just sailing on the ocean in the darkness. People in the world are in utter darkness. But the people in the world don't want the light. That's what's written in John chapter 3. Jesus says to Nicodemus, He says, this is the condemnation. The light has come into the world. The light of the world has come. But people, they just prefer darkness. Why? Because their deeds are evil. They prefer to stay in the darkness. We are the salt of the earth. How can we leave the world? That's why He said, I'm not asking them to leave the world. I'm going to wash them, cleanse them, and put them back in the world. He puts us back into the world, but we are different now. We are not the old people who partook of the stuff in the world. We are different people who are now witnesses to Christ in the world. We are the salt of the earth. Salt preserves. Salt also gives taste. It helps to preserve this world from corruption. There's corruption in this world. So love for the world is incompatible with the love of the Father, because it expresses itself in three ways. Here, it says here, for all that this is 1 John chapter 2 verse 16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life are not from the Father. He says, is not of the Father, but is of the world. This is coming straight out of the world. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. This is not from the Father. So if it's not from the Father, what are we doing with it? Lust of the flesh. You understand, lust of the flesh? That can't be from God. Because due to the lust of the flesh, people kill, murder, they kill, they steal, they batter each other, they hate each other, they gossip, they fight, they backstab. They do all these things just because they want something. They just want stuff. Then you have the lust of the eyes. Everything you see you want, everything you see you desire. Lust of the eyes. And the last is pride. How can pride be from God the Father? It's of the devil. Pride was his sin. That's why he got kicked out from heaven. The pride of life. Every advertisement that the world presents to us on TV, in magazines, or any other form always tries to make an appeal to at least two out of these three components. They'll either make us feel, I want that. That should make me feel good. Oh, that looks awesome. I want that. That'll make me look good. Or the pride of life. If you own this car, if you're going to be separate from everyone else. If you wear this brand, most people don't wear this brand, but you'll stand out because you're wearing this brand. This is pride of life. What's the need of a brand? The brand is so expensive, and you want the brand because you want people to think she only wears this. And that's from the world, brothers and sisters. It's got nothing to do with us who believe in Jesus. It's not from the Father. It's got nothing to do with us. We don't have to be try to want to look better than others, be smarter than others, or just want others to, salivate when they see what we have. You don't want to look richer, higher, mightier, more amazing than everyone else. Oh, to what end? Everything's finished. The world's over. The game's done. And Satan has not revised his tactics at all. He hasn't changed anything. All the same old stuff he tried on Eve, he tried on Jesus, he's trying on you and me. In the Garden of Eden, that's what he does. It works on the human psyche every time. So he came to Eve in the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3, and he showed her this tree which was forbidden. The fruit was forbidden. God had said, in the day that you eat of that tree, you will surely die. But he made her say, it looks awesome as food also, it's awesome. It looks pleasant to the eyes. And the cherry on the cake was, it would make me like God. I'll be different. She saw it and she says, it's desirable to make one wise. He tried the same stuff with Jesus, same 3 tricks. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. He came to Jesus in the wilderness when Jesus was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And the first thing he tells him, he says, he must have said are you the Son of God, really? Really? Are you the Son of God? You look so hungry. You look so pathetic. Why don't you you're the Son of God after all. Why don't you these stones, you can make them into bread very easily. Fill your stomach. You're hungry, fill your stomach. And that appeals to the flesh. Then the second temptation, he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. He says, look at all these kingdoms. Look at the glory. All the authority has been handed over to me. Look at all this stuff. I'll give it to you if you just bow down and worship me. That's lust of the eyes. He was showing him, I'll give you all of this stuff. And that is what I believe, and it's true, that he does with many, Hollywood celebrities, singing celebrities. And in my opinion, they can't sing, and they've sold their soul to the devil just because he told them, I'll give you all this stuff in the world, just bow down and worship me. They've sold themselves to the devil. They have actually opened their mouths and said so. I heard Bob Dylan say that once. I've sold myself to the devil, to him. He sold himself. And the guy who was taking the interview said, to whom? I don't know the term he used, but ultimately he meant he sold his soul to the devil. So whether you can sing or whether you can't sing, you want everything that the world has to offer, all you need to do is sell your soul to the devil. He told Jesus, I'll give you all this if you would bow. Jesus knew it all belongs to me ultimately. One day it's mine, better than this. This is the corrupted version. Jesus was not going to bow to Satan. And the last temptation, he says, look, he takes him up to the pinnacle of the temple and he says, jump. Heaven, you'll have a name. You jump from the pinnacle of the temple and the angels of God came and picked you up. What a name you're going to have. But we know that Jesus told him to get lost. It didn't work. None of his temptations worked on Jesus. And so that was the end of that. And in 1 John chapter 2 and verse 17 it says, and the world is passing away and the lust of it. So should we be sailing in a boat that's positively going to sink? But he who does the will of God abides forever. Jesus abides forever. He didn't fall for that devil's tricks. He didn't think, the world would belong to me and all. Obviously, he's Jesus, he's the Son of God. He didn't fall for any of his tricks, and neither should we. This world is passing away. That's it, it's finished, it's passing away. When you know that something is passing away, why bother with it? And all the lusts of the world are going to pass away with the world. When the world goes, the lusts go. We already read in Revelation chapter 17 that the end time religion will be destroyed, and in 18, Babylon's commercial Babylon will be destroyed. And all the merchants will weep and tear their clothes and pull their hair. And they'll say, what? All these torments, everything, all your troubles have come in a day. All that beauty, all that glory is gone in a day. It's gone up in smoke like Sodom and Gomorrah. And just like he told Lot, get out from Sodom, I'm going to destroy it for sure. And then Lot had to move, and as soon as he moved, he destroyed it. And so it is with us. That's why he tells us, don't have anything to do with them. This is passing away. But if we do the will of God, all these things are not from God, but if we do God's will, we will surely abide forever.